Hello! Welcome to my channel, Edible Thoughts Makes. My name is Stephanie, and this channel is where I share with you my works in progress, finished projects, things I'm cooking up, books I'm reading, funny things my kids may say. My hope is that as you watch this episode and the previous episodes, that you find some inspiration along the way. It is the middle of September, year 2023. It is a beautiful sunny blue sky day here in Minnesota where I live with my husband and our 2 young children. The temps are definitely changing. We had 40s in the morning, we have had 50s in the morning. It has gotten chillier at night where we have to pull out an extra blanket, and it is so welcomed. We love the cooler weather here. I believe we're gonna have still some highs in like the 70s, maybe low 80s, but it is definitely cooling down where it will be probably a good 60s for a little while. And we just love it. And we are in the second week of the school year, and I feel like the second week is sometimes, I don't know if harder is the right word, but as it presents different challenges from the first week. Because the first week there are some jitters, but there's excitement, and then the second week you get a little bit more pushback sometimes. Like things are still exciting, but it's kind of like, okay, yes, we have this routine, we do have to do this every day, and it can sometimes be a little more challenging. For example, one morning we were just having a rough time. Someone just, it isn't that they didn't want to go to school, but they didn't want to get ready maybe for school, or maybe not as quickly as I was hoping they would. And so we got into the car, we were all kind of frustrated with each other. And then the song Girls by Rachel Platten, P-L-A-T-T-E-N, came on, and I just about lost it. Like, I just almost started bawling. I'll put a screenshot of maybe the cover of that song here, or maybe I'll put up the lyrics so at least you can maybe read them. I'm not sure I can play the actual song because of copyright issues, but you could probably look it up. The title is Girls, and I have 2 young daughters, and sometimes it's like the right music hits at the right time and it pulls all the heartstrings and you're just re-grounded maybe, or re-centered, refocused, re-something, and fortunately it was fine after that. But everything was fine. Anyway, so second week of school, a lot of extracurricular type of things start picking up next week, so we'll have to re-figure out our balance, our rhythm, kind of. Not refigure out, just continue figuring out, maybe is a better way to say it. So that's happening. Yeah, it's been a good week. It's only been a week since I was last here, and so last week I had so many finished projects that I was like, you know what, we're going to talk about the other sections next time, and I'll do it next week. So that's where we're at. If you are new here, the way I usually structure my videos is there's a vlog in the beginning, which is like a video montage of things that have happened or nature-y scenes since the previous time that we chatted. I then go into an intro welcome section where I give some life updates, a weather update, things like that. And then we jump into finished projects, and then works in progress, and then an eats and reads section, and then sometimes a food for thought section. That may be like things I've been thinking about, or a question I might have for you, or anyway. And then, what else? All my videos include closed captioning, and if I speak too fast or too slow for your preferences, YouTube does allow you to adjust that speed. And links to designers, makers, things like that are in the description box below. You might have to click on a little chevron or show more arrow. And I do use Ravelry for my project pages, so if that is a site that is accessible to you, I encourage you to look there for details. And I forget to mention this, but I do link to the YouTube episode where I talk about that project, either as a work in progress or as a finished project in the notes on that project page. I find that easier to find things, and so if there's like a specific project that you might have a question about, I would look for that project on my Ravelry page and then check to see if I've talked about it in a YouTube episode, and it'll just take you right there. I do have a few finished projects to share with you today, and then a few works in progress to share with you. I have done a bit of reading, so we will have a bit to chat about in that section, and yeah, let's get started. First thing I would like to talk to you about is the sweater that I am wearing. Actually, before I start that, let's share these earrings. These are by Reshma of Hello Lavender. They're polymer clay earrings, and they have dahlias printed on them. They're like this deep magenta fuchsia color. And we have some similar dahlias in bloom in our garden, and I love them. So I am wearing them today with my Sonder pullover. This is a pattern by the Petite Knitter, and I started this sweater end of March of this year, March 30th. And then summer hit and it was hot and I didn't feel like working on it. And so I just finished it, and it's my second one. The first one I made in a light fingering weight yarn, and this time I made it in a sport weight yarn. The pattern, I believe, calls for sport or DK, and I feel like the yarn that I used can go either way. The pattern comes in 10 sizes, and I chose the third size because I wanted a little more ease. The recommendation is 2 to 4 inches of positive ease, and I just wanted something that was a little bit bigger that I could throw over things and layer and things like that. I also changed up my needle size a little bit, and I think part of that was just based on comfort of knitting. I felt like the needle size calls for the US 4, which is a 3.5 millimeter, was too dense of a gauge on the fabric that I wanted, especially with a sport weight yarn that can go DK or even light worsted because it's so fluffy. Like, it really blooms nicely and fills in the gaps, and I just felt like knitting it on a US 4 was a little tight. So I think I started with a US 4 actually for my cast on, and then I did my short row shaping. I'll turn around to see if I can show you the back there. So I did the short row shaping in the back also on a US 4, and I did 2 extra rows in the short row shaping just to extend that a little bit, because the way our backs are, there's a little more height, length, I don't know. There's more room there. And so because I didn't want the front to ride up, I just added more rows there. So there is short row shaping in the pattern, I just added a little bit more. Oh, and then I did my color work part, I believe on a US 5 needle, which is a 3.75 millimeter. And then I just continued using a US 5 for the rest of the fabric, and I really like it. I used it for the sleeves, I used it for the body, and then for the cuffs, I believe I went back to US 4. The pattern gives a cropped length and a full length, and I knit somewhere in between. It also gives the option of, I believe there's shaping involved as well in the body, but I didn't do that. In hindsight, I probably could have actually done some decreases on the side to bring it in just a little bit, because I decided to do, a cropped length. And sometimes when it's cropped and boxy, the back will kind of flare out a little bit, and it's fine. Again, as a layering piece, it doesn't really show like it sticks out a lot, but I probably could have tapered it down a little bit, which I don't think that part is in the pattern. That would have been on my own, but yeah, I didn't do that. And what else? I knit my sleeve decreases totally differently, and I like my sleeves, if they're gonna be long, I like them long, so I'm not pulling at them. I don't mind a bracelet length sleeve, but then I would purposely be knitting it like that. I feel like for the size that I choose in a pattern, typically the full length ends up bracelet length, and so I'm always knitting that longer. But this time, since I chose a pattern or a size slightly bigger than the recommended, I Well, I don't think I followed the sleeve length anyway, but doesn't matter. I'm not sure what I'm talking about there. My final body circumference I did not measure, but for the size that I picked, I would have had about 5 to 6 inches of positive ease, which I think is probably pretty close to what it turned out to be. The stockinette gauge is at 22 stitches for 4 inches, and the colorwork gauge is at 24 stitches for 4 inches. I'm gonna stand up maybe so that you can see it better. The yarn that I used is by Pearl Soho. It is the Good Wool base, which I love. I feel like this base is so versatile to be knit at different gauges. Like I mentioned, it blooms really nicely. I'm gonna give hopefully a close-up here. And it is at 383 yards for 100 grams. So typically I would say that that's closer to like a heavy fingering weight. However, it's like this magic yarn that just kind of fills in the gaps and fluffs up, and I don't know. I don't understand, because the yardage doesn't seem like it should be, I mean, sport weight, sure, but it doesn't seem like it would fit for DK or even light worsted. But I have knit a gauge swatch recently using US 7 needles, and I think, what was my gauge on that? 20 stitches? Maybe 20 stitches for 4 inches, and it's not like super gapey. So I don't know. I have high hopes for using this yarn for a variety of different gauges in different garments. We'll just see where it goes. The colorways I used are Barn Door, which is this like nice rusty orangey red color, and Pink Salt for my contrast, which is a very light peachy pink. And I really like pink and orange together. I feel like it's very vibrant. There's like the synergy about it. I really like the color work pattern here. I feel like most of the floats are pretty short. I don't remember if I had to catch anything. The color work portion was probably done in April, so I don't remember anymore. But the length here, I have it worn over my Metamorphic dress, which is a Soul Liberated pattern. I talked about it in my previous episode, but I thought I would wear it today. I'm gonna stand up here so maybe you can see the hem better. It's a reversible dress. I did mine in 100% linen. And I have a little belt under here. Here, I'll untuck this. I have this little red belt. And what it's doing for me here is that it is bringing all this extra fabric in a little to keep my sweater from puffing out. And then I can either not tuck it and leave it out and not have it super flared, or I can tuck the bottom hem underneath that belt and have a little tuck in the front that would mimic wearing like high-waisted skirts or jeans or something like that, where you could also tuck it in the front. So that's what I have going on for me here. I'm actually going to take this belt off so maybe you can see the difference. So the dress has a bit of positive ease here around my natural waist, and then where the sweater comes out, I don't know if you can see the back here. There's a lot of extra ease here, so it kind of, on a dress it's harder to tell, but with pants it really flares out. I don't know if that's easy to see, and when I move my arm then it changes how the fabric sits. Anyway, so then when I put the belt on, I can kind of cinch that fabric, all that extra fabric, in a little bit. And by tucking the front, it also brings it in a little bit, so it's less tent-like. Let's see here. Okay, so we're gonna put this belt on. So that brings in some of the fabric, and it doesn't matter if it sits right at the join of the skirt and the bodice here, because that part is not visible. So then when I put it down, the extra fabric doesn't poof my sweater out, and then I can tuck this in, which also then brings everything in a little bit. So yeah, I really like this outfit and color combination. I feel like it's early fall, and these are the colors that are really, that I'm gravitating towards right now. And what else do I have to say about this? I ended up using 225 grams of the main color and 40 grams of the contrast color, and I find this super comfortable. I'm not sure, it's long enough for me to wear with, well, I'm gonna have to try it with jeans to see how I feel about it. It might have to be a layering piece where I have something longer underneath, like a flowy top or like a button-down plaid flannel. I think could look really cute. Otherwise, I would go with high-waisted, wide leg pants I feel like the silhouette would look more balanced versus wearing like skinny jeans or something. The cutoff would be right at my belly button, and I don't know, it just wouldn't look balanced on me, I don't think. So I feel like I can wear this with high-waisted, wide leg pants. I can wear it with skirts, high-waisted skirts. I can wear it like this with a dress, and you'll probably see various versions of this here either on YouTube or on my Instagram. I like to share how I style my makes because I feel like what happens, which is fine for those that just want to make it for the process, there's a lot of value in that. I personally am somebody who makes for the product, for the end result, and how it fits into my life. But that being said, I have to enjoy the process. If I don't enjoy the process, I'm not going to make that project. And so I think about how a certain item will fit into my lifestyle, fit into my wardrobe, fit with other pieces that I have, or figure out what pieces I need to make so that it is something that I can wear either every day or for special occasions or just however way it's going to fit into my life. And I'm so excited to have this piece done because I feel like it's going to fit in really well. The next finished project I'd like to share with you is another sewing one. So in the last episode, I talked about the Hinterland dress and the Metamorphic dress, both by Sew Liberated. And okay, back up. So the Hinterland dress, I'll try to put screenshots of the pattern, like image or the original one here on the screen so you can see what it looks like. So the Hinterland dress has a placket that you can just not do. It also has bust darts, which I haven't figured out how to remove. The Metamorphic dress is a reversible dress. There are no facings. Oh yeah, and the Hinterland dress has facings along the neck band and the armholes, if you do the sleeveless version. And then the Metamorphic dress is sleeveless, and there's no bust darts, there's no placket, and it's reversible. So I decided that I wanted to make one that had no plackets, no bust darts, and single layer. So I did. And I am so pleased with how it turned out. And after talking to some friends and my mom about my issue with facings, my mom said, oh, well, you could just use like the pre-med bias tape. That works really well. Or if you serge the edges and then sew the thing down, you don't even have to like tuck it under if you don't want to because the edges are serged already. And so I thought about that. But I did have some 1/2 inch double fold bias tape on hand, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna give it a try because that cuts out a couple of steps as far as like cutting out that bias tape, you know, cutting out the fabric on the bias. And it cuts out the part where I have to iron it just right. And anyway, for whatever reason, it just seemed like something that was a little more feasible. Dun, 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 dun. Here it is. I did it. So I had bought this cotton fabric. I think it's probably like quilter's cotton or something. I don't remember. It was 4 years ago to sew a dress. And then it didn't happen and I used the fabric for other things like bag linings and stuff like that. Well, I happened to have enough to still sew a dress. I'm not sure how many yards it was because it was all kind of cut up, but I did it. So the top portion, I cut out the bodice from the Metamorphic dress, a size 2, which should give me a couple inches of positive ease. I lengthened the bodice by 2.5 inches because I didn't want it too high up. And then as far as the skirt, the gathered skirt part, I just kind of freestyled that because I used whatever fabric I had remaining that I could cut into 2 rectangles. And then I have inseam pockets there that I use a deep pocket piece, I don't know, cutout piece that I use for everything. And yeah, it turned out really nicely. And then I had this pink bias tape and I think my facings look super tidy. I am so proud of this. I was able to turn it under with 1 millimeter of the outer fabric so that none of the bias tape shows on the outside. I feel like my most proud moment is these underarm sections that are not all puckery. I feel like that is my biggest deal. Like just sewing straight lines or a wider curve is not so hard, just go slow. But this underarm part that is super curved, I always end up with a ton of puckering and folding and it's just a mess. But this time, it worked. So I still ended up with puckering initially because I'm sewing it with wrong side facing. I don't have as much control over this outer fabric. So what I did was after I finished and was annoyed by the underarm puckering, I used the seam ripper and I ripped out maybe like 5-6 inches of it, just past the puckering as well. And then I undid all those stitches, and then I refolded it down, redid what I was supposed to, and then I sewed it with the right side facing so I had more control of this outer fabric to keep it from puckering and folding up. And I feel like it worked out really, really well for me. And I am so proud of the work that I have done here. And I think also using fabric that I had on hand already, that I remember was pretty inexpensive. I feel like there was less pressure. And if I messed up, I messed up, but at least I tried. And so, yeah, I'm just really glad it worked out. And it's a wearable piece, and I feel more confident to try this out on other things now. In fact, I am planning on doing like a brushed cotton plaid version of this with this mash up of the Hinterland and Metamorphic dress, and I'll probably make it shorter. I feel like this one is super long, but it's like this one probably hits me mid-calf, so it's a perfect sundress. I can layer it with like a jean jacket, and I think that would be super cute. But I think for the cotton plaid one, I want to make it a little bit shorter, maybe 5 inches shorter, and then wear that with like black leggings and maybe like a thin long sleeve underneath. So I haven't decided for the bodice section if I want to cut out the next size up, especially if I want to be able to wear like a long sleeve underneath. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm so proud of myself and I'm so glad it worked. The next finished project is a knit one, and here it is. This is a Musselburgh hat, or Musselburgh hat by Isolde Teague, and I knit this for my niece's birthday. Her birthday's not till November, but if you've been here for a little while, you'll know that I gift knit year-round, and I have this gift basket where I toss things into as they get finished, and that way, when it gets time to those birthdays, when it gets time to Christmas, I would say that I'm not panicking, but that's not true. I'm panicking much less. And so that way things get done and I am not super stressed about it. Not as stressed. So this is knit out of the yarn dyed by Christina of Teal Torch Knits. And I believe this colorway, is it called Happy Birthday or Birthday Cake or something related to birthday? I feel like it reminds me of Funfetti cake. I think that's the point. But I think it's called Birthday Cake. I don't remember exactly. But it has this cream base with neon sprinkles all over it. And it is absolutely joyful and so fun. So this hat, if you are unfamiliar with the construction, it is double layered hat. So the pattern has you start on one end and you do these the crown section, and you do increases, and then you knit to the other end, and then you mimic that crown by doing decreases. Well, this time I decided I didn't want to mess with the fiddly part in the beginning. So knowing my gauge, I was going to use US 6 4mm needles, and this is a DK weight yarn, by the way, a light DK weight. It's 246 yards for 100 grams. And so knowing my gauge, I said, you know what, I'm just going to start wherever and cast on with a crochet provisional cast on. And then I'm going to knit maybe 1 inch of stockinette in the round. And then I'm going to knit that crown, which is the decrease part. And then once I finish that and I weigh how much yarn I used for that crown, then I'm going to pick up from the crochet provisional cast on and knit until I have just enough yarn left for the other crown and be done. So that worked out really well for me. and I used 101 grams. I had 104 to start, so I probably could have knit just a couple more rounds of stockinette in the middle, but I decided I was done. So here it is, and then what happens is the hat is folded in half on itself, so it's double layered, which will be so nice because this is DK weight yarn. It's going to feel nice and warm over her ears, and then it can be worn slouchy or with the brim folded up for that extra protection over the ears. And I just love how it turned out. It is the perfect birthday hat. I'm so excited about it. I haven't measured, well, maybe I did measure. I think the circumference is 15, the circumference might be 15 inches and the length about 20 inches is what I ended up with. I don't know what it says for pattern recommendations because I just knit till the yarn ran out, but it seems like it'll be just fine. I think my numbers probably end up close to like the child, tween, or adult small. Maybe more like child if it's 15 inches. I don't know. The pattern is a paid for pattern, so if you were interested, I would just recommend looking at the designer's website for whatever information is provided there, and then decide if you want to purchase the pattern. I have knit several of these hats. I feel like they are so much fun to use up either one skein of 100 grams, or you can use a bunch of little bits of yarn from various different projects to make a stripey one. You can just do a 2-color one with 50 grams of each color. You can do it in so many different weights of yarn. It is a very fun knit, and I generally have one sitting in the car for whenever, like backup knitting if I forgot to bring whatever other knitting, or I feel like just going round and round stockinette. And yeah, I love how this turned out. Last finished project for today is back to a sewing project, but it's related to knitting because it is a project bag. If you are new here, I do not sell my project bags. I am not a business. I don't plan on ever doing a tutorial or writing up a pattern for my bags either. I just freestyle it, and it is so fun to do it that way because I don't have to follow anything. I don't follow any other pattern, but there's tons out there on YouTube. You could just search for drawstring project bag. So there are pictorial tutorials out there too, I'm sure, if you just search on Google. But anyway, this is my project bag. It is so autumnal and I just love it. It is a brushed cotton plaid, and I am very proud of how everything just lined up. I mean, it's a little off, but the lines still kind of line up here in a square, and I think that looks really cool, and it was unintentional. And I have a canvas boxed bottom and a linen drawstring channel, and just wait till I show you the inside. Let me take out the project because I'll talk about that later as a work in progress. But on the inside I have this other brushed cotton, and it's the mustard yellow with these mushrooms, and it is so cute. And because it is all of this brushed cotton, it's so cozy. I have a little pocket inside that I am holding like lip balm and hand balm. Oh, I love it. It is so cute. And it stands up on its own. There is, I think, fusible fleece interfacing is what I used in this one, so it's pretty sturdy, but still super soft. And I love it. And I will show you the project that I'm working on inside very shortly. Okay, we are on to the works in progress section. I have a few to share with you today, and let me just pull up some information. The first one I'm going to share with you is in the project bag that I just shared. And this is a project that I've had my eye on since its release earlier this year. I believe it was released in January. This is a pattern by Amy Scher. And again, if you've been here for a while, you'll know that I have knit a lot of their patterns. I have tested patterns a lot for Amy, and I really admire their thoughtfulness in designing patterns that are not only size inclusive, but shape inclusive, with details that aren't, for me personally, overwhelming. It's just more information should you need it or choose to incorporate that into the project, the garment, what have you, that you are making. It does not mean you have to read all of the extra details if you already feel like you have a good handle on it, but it is there for you in case you would find that information useful. So this is the building blocks drop. I will have a screenshot of it from Amy's website or Amy's Ravelry project page here on the screen so you can see what it looks like. Like many of Amy's patterns, there are different views that you can mix and match. This is a drop shoulder design, which I haven't actually knit a ton of drop shoulder options before, simply because I find circular yokes and raglans to fit just fine on me, but I don't know, I got the itch to try something different. I also tend to knit top-down garments, but this is a bottom-up, and I have a few bottom-up patterns that I have queued up for the next several months. So this is one of them. And this is knit in worsted weight yarn. The gauge is 17 stitches and 24 rows for 4 inches of stockinette in the round. The recommended needle size is a US 8, which is a 5mm for the main fabric, and then a US 6, which is a 4mm for the ribbing. It comes in many sizes, 9, 10 sizes. I'm not entirely sure. I didn't count. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 sizes, assuming I counted that correctly. On the pattern page, it lists the fit recommendations for both an upper bust measurement and a finished full bust measurement. Wait, I don't think I said that right. It lists the sizing by fit for the upper bust measurement, and it also provides what the finished full bust measurement would be of the garment. I think I said that correctly. And I feel like that information is helpful in deciding which size is going to be your preference. And so generally I tend to pick size 2 for like 5, 6-ish inches of positive ease. I mean, sometimes it's a bigger range than that. But in this case, the smallest size is a 38.5 inch finished circumference, and so I'm going to knit the first size because I do like it slightly oversized, but for what I'm making, I don't want it super oversized. So I'm going to knit a vest or slip over version. I feel like it, to me, reads a little more slip over-ish because of it being a drop shoulder. There's kind of sleeve happening, and for me, a vest has no sleeves, but I don't know, to each their own. So I'm planning on knitting a cropped version, so I want it to hit like right above my hip bone. And I do think I'm going to put in the pockets that are written in the pattern, and yeah, we'll see where I go from there. And hopefully I will have inserted some photos here on the screen from Amy's Ravelry project page to show you the different views that are available for mix and matching and things like that, so that you have a better idea of what I'm talking about. The pattern does recommend using like a very lightweight fluffy worsted weight yarn or unspun yarn. What I am using is a yarn by Pearl Soho. This is the Hedgerow base, which I have been super excited to try. It is like a tweedy, toothy yarn. It's 93% merino, 3.5% cashmere, 3.5% mulberry silk. And hopefully the close-up here is showing this beautiful gray yarn that has little bits of light brown and maybe black even in there. The yarn is a little bit thick and thin. It is a very loosely plied yarn. And when it is blocked, it fluffs up really nicely and has a really nice feel to it. It is toothier and it does feel dry in hand, and I love it. I think it's going to be so nice, and it feels very lightweight. So I feel like all of these descriptions fit Amy's recommendations for what yarn to use. So I will show you where I'm at. Here it is. Here's this bottom hem. I have it on a 24-inch cable right now. It is not too bunched, but not spread out either. And maybe you can tell here, the ribbing is slightly, I don't feel like uneven is the right word, but because of the thick and thin nature of this yarn, it it just isn't like, I don't know what the word would be. Like it's not super smooth, and it blends in maybe a little bit more. I don't know how else to describe it, but I really like it, and I'm really enjoying knitting with it. I love how it feels in hand. I will say initially when I used aluminum needles, I felt like it was too grippy. It just didn't feel very good. So then I switched to these Chow stainless steel needles, and they are gliding much better. So I typically knit with metal needles anyway, but I did find a difference between using the, I think those ones are aluminum. Pretty sure they are anyway. But it feels much better on these stainless steel ones. I am getting close to finishing the ribbing. I think I just have maybe another ½ inch or so to go. And then I will switch to the main needles and knit stockinette. So it'll be fun to see how the stockinette fabric knits up. Here is a Polymer Clay Progress Keeper by Reshma of Hello Lavender. It is part of her Affirmation 2.0 collection. I just love it. This one says, I am enough. And I feel like that reminder is always needed, especially when you are figuring out your rhythm in a new school year. Let's just say that. We'll leave it at that. But yes, I'm super excited about this project. I am loving the I was gonna say tempo of which it's knitting up. I am also a musician, if you didn't know that. But yeah, I'm really excited about this piece. I feel like once it gets to the stockinette portion, it's gonna just fly off the needles, and then it'll be interesting to learn how to do that top section, again, because I don't knit bottom up very often, and it is a drop shoulder construction, so this will be really fun to do. But yeah, so more progress on that for next time. The next project I am going to share with you is a test that I am doing for Tiff Nealon. It is called the Trestle Tee, and this one is due in October, so the release will be probably sometime mid-October. And this one is also drop shoulder, but knit top down. And this construction was super fun to me. It wasn't hard, but it did engage my brain in a way that was like, ooh, this is kind of a fun puzzle piece thing happening. And I loved it. So here is what I've got. I really wanted to knit one in this brown, rusty brownish color. I feel like it is quintessential fall, and I knit mine to a cropped length, and I won't say too much about it more because it is in testing, and you'll hear many more details about it once it is released, and I'll wear it and show you more details on that. But I did want to share this with you. I've got the sleeve cuffs left to do, and the yarn that I am using is by Pearl Soho. It is the Widgeon base, which is 100% fine Falkland merino. It is not superwash. It is 359 yards for 100 grams, and this colorway is called Whiskey Brown. And I love how it's knitting up, and it's just so beautiful, and I am looking forward to wearing this piece and telling you more about it, but this is your sneak peek for now. Next work in progress I'd like to share with you is an update on my daughter's flax sweater. Here it is. The body is all finished. I have the sleeves to knit, and that should maybe take me a week, so it'll be finished probably the next time I see you. This is knit in Malabrigo Rios in the peachy colorway. It is a worsted weight yarn that's 100% superwash merino. The flax pattern by Tin Can Knits is a free pattern, and they've added an addendum for short row shaping in the back, which is done after this raglan shaping is complete. And I love how this is looking. I modified the neckline because previously when I've knit this pattern, the neckline ends up being too wide and it stretches out, especially if I'm using superwash merino. And so this time I did an old Norwegian cast on for the same number of stitches it asks for. And I think I went down a needle size in the ribbing, and then I knit, I think, more than double what it says for the ribbing, and basically knit to double the width of ribbing that you want, and in the end. And then I folded that in half, wrong sides together, knit to the cast on edge, and then continued per the pattern. And I feel like it gives a very tidy finish on the top. It's still super stretchy, and it looks really nice. And it won't get all stretched out. And even if it does stretch out a little bit, because it's thicker and has more structure to it, I think it will hold its shape really well. And if for some reason it doesn't, I can thread elastic through it because it's kind of like a casing, and that I think would hold really well over time. The fun thing about this flax sweater is that there's this garter panel that runs down the sleeves. And yeah, I'm very happy with how this is coming to be. I knit the adult XS size for my 10-year-old. I think I cropped the body, well, not cropped, on her it won't be cropped, but I did knit it to what she wanted. So she tried it on, it is top down, so when it was on longer cords, I had her try it on and she would show me, you know, Mom, I want it to go to here or something like that, and so that's what I based it off of. And so I think I ended up doing, let's say, 10, 20, 30, 40, 55-ish rounds maybe, and then including the ribbing, maybe it was like 60-ish. So that's what I did here. And I believe let's see here, I want to say that the gauge for this is 18 stitches for 4 inches. And so I'm super happy with how this is turning out. I did alternate skeins because there is some variation in the color. There's like peachy pink, and it is so beautiful, but there is the chance of color pooling, so I did alternate skeins every other round. I did helical knitting, where once you get to 3 stitches before the next yarn, you slip those 3 over from left to right, and then you pick up that new yarn and continue knitting, and then just keep doing that. And so your stitches just basically keep traveling by 3, and then there's no seam or jog or anything like that. It just continues. And then I basically do that until I get to a ribbing section, and then I'll cut one of the yarns and then just do the ribbing in from one cake of yarn. And yeah, I really love how this is turning out. And so, depending on when we talk next, it could be finished. The last work in progress I would like to share with you today is knit out of my September Sock Squad yarn by the Farmer's Daughter Fibers. It is a yarn subscription that is based off of wildflowers and their pollinators. And this month it is milkweed is the inspiration. I have the sticker here on my project page. Hopefully I can put it on the screen without too much glare. I don't have the calendar right next to me to show you, so here's the sticker. There's a monarch butterfly on there. And I am knitting a modified version of the blueberry waffle socks. It is a free pattern by Sandy Turner, and I've made a ton of progress because they're worsted weight socks. I have knit this pattern multiple times before. It is one that I find super enjoyable, and the pattern I think has you use US 5s. I've used US 3 for DK weight, and I've used now US 4 for more worsted weight. This yarn is the Highwood sock base, which is an 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon, 400 yards for 100 grams, which I find, you know, if you double or half it, then it's 200 yards for 100 grams, right? Which is, for me, more like a worsted weight than a DK weight. And so, I have these on a US 4, which is a 3.5 millimeter needle. It has got this really nice squishy patterning, which is actually super easy. It's basically 2 rounds of knit and 2 rounds of knit 2 purl 2 to create this waffle texture. I did a cast on of 48 stitches, which again is different from the pattern. And then I did a 2x2 rib for 15 rounds before starting the patterning. And then for the patterning, I did 8 reps of the 4-round pattern. And then I put in a shadow wrap heel, which is a short row heel that I prefer. I find it really easy to memorize and easy to use anywhere, and it fits really well. And then so now I am on the feet, and I like to knit my socks 2 at a time in tandem. I did start out on 9-inch circulars, and then I switched to magic loop because I wanted to. So I have 2 progress keepers on here by my friend Maria of Woolen Forest, which I think now she's Forest Charm, and They are right on theme with the season. Hopefully I can hold them close up enough that you can see them. One of them has a witch's hat and a gemstone, and the other one is a crescent moon with a gemstone. And I think they go really well. Oops, I'm dropping my bag here. I think they go really well with the season and the yarn. I'm gonna see if I can untangle here and show you the yarn closer up. It is like a light, very light lavender with some speckles of hot pink and maybe black or dark purple. I'm not sure how well it is showing up here, but it's very lovely, and I like the fabric it's creating in this sock. Maybe you can see the stockinette of it better here on the bottom of the foot, where the speckles are very evenly spread out, especially by holding the yarn double. It breaks up any potential pooling of speckles or colors or anything like that. And I feel like it creates a squishier fabric, maybe because there's more air pockets since the yarn is held double instead of just like a regular DK or worsted weight, which then you also have like bigger gaps between stitches, right? Because just the way it's being knit. I don't know if that makes sense, but it makes sense in my head. I can visually picture it in my head. These are going into the gift bin. I know exactly who they are going to, and they are going to love it. And yeah, I'm super excited about these. These will probably also be done by the next time we talk. I don't know if I will share it again at that point or not. I guess it really just depends on when I'm back here. But I have this in a super cute bag that I sewed up previously, sometime last year or the year before maybe, I don't really know. It's a patchwork of different shades of purple and ochre, and the back has purple flowers, and I feel like it goes perfectly with what's inside, and I just love it. On to the eats and reads section. We'll start by what is in my mug. I have pumpkin spice rooibos tea. Generally, I can only have caffeine really early in the morning, otherwise I'm doomed to not sleep at night. So this has no caffeine in it. I've been doing quite a bit of baking with the weather cooling down. I've baked some molasses cookies, I've done some cranberry banana bread, I've made some Parmesan cheddar no-knead bread to go with soup. It's been delightful baking. I mean, I bake in the summer too, but sometimes I don't gravitate towards baking as much during the summer because the oven heats up the kitchen, and when it's hot out, I just don't feel like heating everything up. But when it's cooler outside, it's so nice to have the oven going. Okay, as far as reading goes, I recently, well, I think I'm on the 5th book, picked up a series of books. So, start over. My 10-year-old had received a gift of the first book of the series. This is the Percy Jackson series, Percy Jackson and the Olympians. And hopefully I'll have a picture of the books here on the screen, which I like to do as I talk about books because I find it easier when there's like a visual. So she was gifted the first book. I think she started reading it and she didn't love it. One, because she connects better when the main character is not a boy. And two, I think there was just too much action for her. She doesn't really like things that are super action-packed. It just makes her nervous, especially if there's like a lot of fighting. And three, I think, so the whole thing is based off of Greek mythology, and I feel like if you don't have some basis in Greek mythology, it can be a little confusing. And she has actually started learning about Greek mythology in school. At least she did at the end of last year in 4th grade. So maybe she'll try reading it again. I don't know, but she didn't love it. So I picked it up and read it, and I find them kind of fun to read. So I just continued powering the rest of the books from the library, and now I'm on the 5th one. So it is a young adult fantasy series. The main character starts out in book 1 at the age of 12, I think, and by the time he's finished, I believe he's 18. And it first published in 2005, and I think the last book is coming out this fall, maybe. And let's see, so I mentioned this Greek mythology. It's Greek gods in the 21st century, based in the United States. And yeah, it's just kind of fun. Nothing like what is the word I'm thinking about? Mind-blowing or like super thought-provoking or anything, but it is kind of a fun read. The other book that I read, although I didn't finish, and I should say, so I didn't finish it only because I had to return it to the library. And I think I'll check it out again maybe next month. I don't know. We'll see if I'm on the wait list for a long time for it. But that book is The Night Circus, and again, I'll have a picture of it here on the screen, and I feel like it goes really well with like kind of a spooky fall vibe. I will say that there are parts of it that are hard to read because, I'm not going to say, because there's some trigger warnings, I would say. So if you're worried about trigger warnings, I would just search on Google for, you know, the title of the book and trigger warnings, and they'll tell you what the trigger warnings are. So it's kind of dark, it's mysterious, it's fantasy, fiction, it's magic realism. I believe this one might also go under young adult as far as like genre of stuff goes. And the premise of it, I think it was in the 1800s, dueling magicians that have been like assigned this life challenge ever since they were little kids. And so they do not have normal childhoods, whatever that may be anyway, but they definitely don't have any sort of typical childhood. And yeah, so I started reading it. I can't remember how far I was in it before I had to return it to the library. I think at that time I might have had a whole bunch of books from the library that I had on hold all come in at the same time. And so I really only had a chance to read a little bit of everything before I had to return it. So I may try it again. We'll see. This one was published in 2011 and it was recommended to me by a viewer here on my channel, and so thank you. The next book I would like to talk about is one that I am not super far into. I think I'm like, well, I'm about 20-25%. And it seems to be a very popular book right now. It is Fourth Wing. And I was on the wait list for this for months. I think it was just published, right? Let's see, I have the library book here next to me. Was it published this year? 2023, yes. It was published this year. And let me tell you my first initial impressions. Okay, so hold up, back up a little bit. So this is also a young adult fiction book. I don't know if it would go under sci-fi, but it's fantasy. Oh, let me see. It's definitely fantasy, but I don't know, maybe not sci-fi. I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, first impressions, Hunger Games, and I'm also getting vibes from Legendborn. The main character is named Violet, and she is 20 years old, and she goes to this war college. Basically, everybody might die at any point because there's all these different challenges, and their end goal is to bond with a dragon and, I don't know, save the world, or I don't know. So there are some characters where I just keep having these flashbacks to Legendborn by Tracy Deonn, and I think it's because there's this main female character, and then there's these two guys, and then one guy happens to be all like shadowy with black hair, and he's supposed to be super handsome, but he's sinister, and you don't know what all his motives are, and that like has a similar character in both books. And then you've got this other guy who's supposed to be like so caring, and instead of jet black hair, he has like sandy brown blonde hair or something. And he's also tall and handsome, and you have these like good bad type of things, except you're drawn to potentially like both of them for different reasons. That's my initial impression of what's going on in this book. It's fantasy romance, dragons, fiction. I don't know what is categorized as young adult versus just adult fiction. I feel like there's quite a bit of violence in it, so I feel like it is definitely not something I would give to like a middle schooler to read, and I feel like some middle school books are labeled as YA. So I don't know. And although I'm looking at the side here, it does not say YA on it, and I don't remember on library books if they say YA. So that's my first impressions of this book. I believe it is either a series or a duology. I don't really know. And I will say I'm enjoying it so far. My one thing is, again, comparing this book to Legendborn, I felt like I got more character development in that book, where I really got a sense of who the people were, and I fell in love with them, and I wanted to know. I was like invested and wanted to know more. Whereas this book, even though I'm like 20-ish% in already, I don't feel as invested in all of these characters, because again, there's a lot of side characters, just like in Legendborn, but I don't feel as connected to them because I don't feel like there was or has been as much character development, so I don't really know them. I don't feel like I know where they're coming from or can figure out their personalities type of thing. The main characters, I feel like it's really repetitive almost in some ways as to who they are and their descriptions, but yet you still don't really know who they are or their backgrounds. First impressions. We will see how I feel by the end of the book. Okay, my friends, that is it today. I thought I had something for food for thought because I had some things ruminating in my brain earlier this morning, but because I didn't jot them down, I no longer have those thoughts. They have floated somewhere else and I don't know what happened to them. So if they come back to mind, I will jot them down for next time, but I don't know what it was that I wanted to talk about. So yeah, I hope you are doing well. I hope you are taking care of yourselves, your loved ones, and your neighbors. Cheers to being creative, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.